Before we get started in this video, I do want to take a moment and say this Sunday, June 30th at 10 a.m. on our channel under the community, we are going to open up a discussion about why don't you go to church? What is it about church that is holding you away? Because I have my struggles as well, and I'm going to share those with you this Sunday. But join us. That's going to be under the community tab at the God, Family, and Guns YouTube page. I've been standing here for a few moments, really trying to figure out how to start this video. And I guess I'm just going to start it by saying literally 10 minutes ago, I got a text from my wife that my daughter and her fiance, who have been staying with us, have COVID. Now, I'm not worried about it. I'm sure that means we have COVID as well. But again, I'm not worried about it. And that is not what this video is about. COVID never really bothered me. It just kind of, every time I've gotten COVID so many times, I don't even know how many times. But it just always feels like I put like a 20-pound hat on my head and 50-pound backpack on, and it's just hard to move around and get up. Like it just, I feel much heavier is I guess kind of how it feels. It's just harder to get up, that kind of thing. My muscles don't work as well as they ought to. But again, that's not what this video is about. What this video is about is the disturbing news that my wife also shared with me just the night before. And it's not the news that disturbs me, it's the reaction she has had to it that disturbed me, and the headline to it and the article, the whole thing. And ultimately what it was the former head of the CDC put out an interview with the New York Times, I believe is who it was with, that it wasn't a matter of if, but when the bird flu would be our next pandemic, that was going to be our next pandemic, and that it has a 50% mortality rate. Now, this is something that disturbs me because of the fear factor of it. It's a control and it's a fear. It's control through fear. So that's the part that disturbed me. The article itself is what disturbed me. Bird flu's been around a long time. I remember back when I was first a teacher, I bet I was like 25 maybe, kids talking about the bird flu. So let's start with that. But I kind of want to go back to the COVID thing, because when COVID hit, they came out with ivermectin, and the CDC right away was sitting there saying, this is going to cause all these problems. It could kill you. It could cause your nervous system to be destroyed. But what they were doing is they were testing on rats at thousands of times higher dose than a man would take on a daily basis just to get through that sickness. Thousands of times higher. And they recently disclosed that they purposely skewed the data, and that this is what it really says. And of course, I'm going to recommend you have ivermectin on hand, because I can tell you how I deal with COVID, but I got a whole family of people and they all do it with different ways. So we have ivermectin on hand, and we got it through Jace. I'm going to put that link below. But be ready for this next one. Don't sit there and, because lockdowns are coming, the masks are coming back, if there is going to be a bird flu pandemic or an avian flu pandemic, this is what they're going to do. You already know this is what they're going to do because they just did it. So you can already see, well, what is it they're actually going to do? And what is the CDC going to say? Now, what I'm pretty willing to bet the CDC is going to say is that there needs to be some sort of a vaccine. There needs to be some sort of something other than your ability to take care of yourself in your own home. Because if you had ivermectin on hand during the COVID pandemic, you could take care of yourself in your home. Well, now what Jace offers is Asoltamivir, and it's going to be recommended. It's an antiviral. It's really going to be the drug of choice during the bird flu pandemic, if and when it comes, according to the former CDC. Chief. So I'm going to recommend, I always recommend you have emergency antibiotics on hand. You have your chronic meds on hand. And you have a Soltamavir on hand, and all that you can get from Jace. I'm going to put the link below. I'm sure they have some discounts. They always do. Just check them out. For a while, I think the ivermectin was free for a bit, so it was kind of an add-on to something else, and you could have added. I don't know if it still is. I probably should check the website before I did this video, but this really isn't about trying to, push Jace. It's just that's the only place I know to get it. If I could say, well, go to your local drugstore and get it. Well, you can't, because it needs to be prescribed to you. And I'm pretty sure your doctor's not going to prescribe it to you. So Jace is willing to, through a U.S. doctor, prescribe it to you specifically for you and your age and your weight and all that stuff. It's prescribed to you. And then you get it from a U.S. pharmacy. So it's the only place I know that does that. And that's why that's why I'm saying the link's below. If you have another means of getting it, do it that way. But have ivermectin on hand, have a Soltamavir on hand, have emergency antibiotics on hand, have your chronic meds on hand. These are critical pieces to whatever happens in the world. Whether it be another pandemic or some sort of, we just saw the pharmacy issue where, or the insurance companies where they got hacked so people couldn't get their meds for a long while. And if you were on chronic meds, you'd be in a world of hurt. And that just happened, let alone there's some sort of, supply chain problem or war or whatever. It's important to have these things on hand, but, and I kind of told my wife that was the piece is like, don't, because what bothered me is she got scared. That's what bothered me. I'm just being honest. That's what disturbed me the most is that I could see how afraid she was. And I've seen that before in her back when COVID hit. And there was a bit of fear in me too, honestly, just like I'm sure there was in you. And I'm just not doing that again. I'm just not going to do that again. This time, I'm going to have all these things on hand. Well, I already do have them on hand, but if the bird flu comes to our household, we're just going to take a Soltamavir. It's already been prescribed to us by a U.S. doctor from a U.S. pharmacy. So, will I go to my doctor? Sure. But, I just want to rely on I don't want to rely on what the CDC approves, I guess, or what they say for sure. I want to rely on what I know works, and have that in my home. So, I don't have to worry about it. Like, let me put it this way. Recently I had a heart condition and they put me on 13 different meds after my procedures. And 2 of them I couldn't get for like a month because my insurance wouldn't approve them. Well, there was like a process of approval. Like I think the doctor had to submit something to them and then they just had to wait. So here I am, they're like, all right, you just had heart surgery. So therefore, here's what you need to make sure that this works out post-surgery. And I just couldn't get it. I just couldn't get, they said you could pay, when I went to the pharmacy, they're like, well, you could pay for it if you want. And I was like, well, great. How much are there? It was like $4,000. It was crazy. So, I recommend you have this stuff on hand. That's really it. Don't let this scare you. Don't let it scare you. Because that's what that is. It's control through fear. Don't let it get you. Have some Soltamavir on hand. It's an antiviral. That's what you need if you get a virus. So those links are below. Any thoughts or insight on any of this? Definitely put that below. The most important part of this channel by far is we take prayer requests. So please don't ever hesitate to send that in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guns. And as always, love God, love your family, love guns.